What's going on, everyone? Hope you're doing well on this Wednesday. Good news, no new assignments. So I want to give you a chance to catch up on Three Cheers for the Nanny State. We just finished that yesterday. I think many people are still finishing that up. So second quarter is ending, Friday here. So hopefully by Friday, everyone will be in a good place. You got your A's, got your B's, whatever. You got some good grades because everybody, potentially could do it, but it just takes effort. So, but I don't think this class is all that hard. So today, no new assignments, but we are going to talk about one thing that is mentioned in an article that we are going to read tomorrow. And it's a very difficult article with very difficult vocabulary, which we will probably cover on Monday. Okay, but the it's pretty hard. And one of the vocabulary words that is mentioned in the article, and I would like to talk about today, is something called Big Brother. Maybe you've seen it's all over the internet, really, like Big Brother is watching you. You may have come into contact with that. So what I would like to do is talk about the book where that came from, which is 1984. I got it right here. I have some notes so I don't forget what I want to say because there are quite a few things I want to cover because John Green is going to also cover it for us, but he just does it so quickly. But 1984, right at the bottom, you can see is a book written by this guy named George Orwell, and it was written in 1949. So 1984 was the future. And what this book tried to do, or maybe did successfully, is kind of paint a picture of what life, government might be like in the future. And I would argue, maybe we're not quite there yet, but with Big Brother, I don't know, something we'll talk about in a minute. But in 1949, let's think about what was going on, what maybe was George Orwell reading in the news that might cause him to write a book like this. So World War II ended, right? We're talking 1945, 1946. So the horrors of the Holocaust have come out, the concentration camps, all that stuff, which we are going to dive into a little deeper in the fourth quarter, into the third quarter. So he has realized that governments run by people like Hitler, these dictators. Stalin was another guy who's still ruling over Russia. So when you look at some of these governments where these dictators are just controlling everything or trying to control everything, in 1984, they're actually going to talk about how the government might try to control your thoughts. Even thinking the wrong thing could get you executed. Now, John Green is going to talk about quite a few different things, really difficult things: colonialism, capitalism, communism, socialism, a lot of isms. And then one that I have trouble saying out loud sometimes, I hope I don't mess it up, totalitarianism. Totalitarianism. It's got total in the beginning. We'll talk about that in a minute. But does anybody know what colonialism is? I'll pause that here, shoot a hand up, explain it. You can take whole classes in college about colonialism because it really shaped the way the world looks now. But in like 10 seconds, it's where major European powers like France, England, Spain, Portugal, Germany, the Netherlands to a smaller extent would use their navies, go around the world and claim land, even though people were living there already. So like let's take just North America, you got the English, England, in this part of the world, we all speak English today. You have the French up in Canada, parts of Canada speak French. And then like Mexico, they speak Spanish there. Guess who colonized that place? The Spanish. So it's when people with like really good weapons would come in and just take over the country. So Africa was carved up. Australia was claimed by the English. New Zealand claimed by the English. But there's a place called Burma, which is where George Orwell is going to grow up. And his dad, it was Burma back then. You might hear it called Myanmar now. But his dad was part of this English company based here because the French, the English took over major parts of Asia, never really took control of China. But one of the ambitions to do that was George Orwell's dad ran this company producing opium, not producing it, but opium grows naturally. But they would turn opium into drugs like possibly heroin, and they would sell it to the Chinese to try to have a way of like controlling them. That was one way, one of the many ways like colonialism worked, like trying to take over a country by any means necessary. And opium was a drug that was kind of used as a weapon. John Green is going to talk a little bit about that. So even a young George Orwell is going to realize like, oh, wow, governments can be pretty darn corrupt. The Belgians in Africa, if you do any research on that, they were just like horrible when they took over parts of the Congo, just horrible, chopping off like hands and stuff if people wouldn't listen, just awful stuff. So by any means necessary. And then like colonialism dies out right about this time after World War II. The European powers, they're not quite as powerful as they used to be, and they have trouble at home, and it's just too expensive to take control of these areas still. So they start pulling out. And when that happens, colonialism leads to a lot of wars, current wars that are being fought now, because the European countries would divide these countries up into maybe putting tribes or cultures together that really shouldn't be. And so when the European powers leave, it's like, okay, who's going to take control of this land? So opium was one way that was trying to be used to control the Chinese. So colonialism, very complicated. He's going to mention a couple different types of government. So let's talk about them really quickly. You got capitalism. Does anybody have any idea what capitalism is? So the United States would probably call us a capitalist country. That it basically is money driven. Like whoever has the most money sort of has the most power. Or how about you have the ability, like, I guess it boils down to this. If you work really hard, possibly get really educated, you could make more money. It's really, really way too simple. But when we talk about the other two kind of governments, it might make sense. All right, socialism. This is what a lot of Europe is. Anybody have any idea what socialism is? Okay, so socialism is more of like a nanny state, like we talked about before. It's where the government takes care of you, but also possibly takes more of your money through taxes. But then you might, with a socialist kind of country, you might have free education throughout, maybe even college and stuff. You might have free medical care, those kind of things. So parts of the United States, we do have some socialism going on. Like when you retire, you get Social Security. It's a government funded like retirement program. So, but I think most people would say that we were capitalist as opposed to socialist. The other thing I want to talk about is communist. So that's where the government really controls everything. The people really don't have to worry about too much. Everything is shared. But when people actually try to do communism in the real life, people get greedy, and it really has never worked before. But that would be like almost total control of the state. Speaking of totalitarianism, I think I say that wrong every single time, but it's got total in it. So dictator. This is in 1984, the book by George Orwell. This is the type of government they have. A dictator controls everything. The media, everything you watch on TV is controlled by the media. And there is even an attempt to control your thoughts. All right, so let's get into this thing called Big Brother watching. I think I can share this with you. Yeah, so here are a bunch. I don't know if you've ever seen these type of things, but they're kind of like propaganda posters that this comes exactly from 1984. Big Brother is watching you. That means the government is watching you. They are trying to catch you doing something wrong, maybe even thinking something wrong with like the thought police. You may hear that in daily conversation or on the news or whatever, the thought police. And hang on, look at this. Look at this. Like, make this a little bigger. We have one that kind of looks like that. I mean, that kind of looks like Hitler, right? Thinking Hitler right there. But then you got like Mark Zuckerberg, Meta, Facebook, Instagram. This guy, like, hey, is he getting information from you? So obviously someone wrote this about Obama. Maybe they thought the government of the United States was encroaching too much. Now, obviously, we got Putin there. Big Brother is watching you. So anytime you hear that Big Brother is watching you, think of the government listening to us. Cameras all over the place for public safety, right? Or is it not? I would argue today, like, yeah, maybe the government is listening and watching us and whatever, but I think you have to worry more about big companies. Just like that picture of Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook. I know it's mostly for old people, but old people vote in elections. And Facebook was very involved in the 2020 election. We're going on a little bit too long to talk about that. But all right, one I want to talk about this woman here. I just kind of gone down a rabbit hole on her just over the long weekend. I watched a few interviews with her. She is from North Korea, and she was able to escape, and she wrote a book. Let's see if I can share this with you, just in case you want to find a book or something this interests you. But what she did was trying to get this for you. She wrote a book detailing how she escaped from North Korea, and it's pretty messed up. So she lived as a child, like an 8-year-old child. I think she was 8, through the 1990s in North Korea, where there was a famine. So talk about a totalitarianism government, North Korea. She writes about how she was worried about the government listening in on her. Her mom said that like the crickets and the cockroaches can hear you, so don't even whisper. So that's getting into like thought police. She also said like the leaders, I can't name them all, but there's three major, like Kim Il-sung is one of them. The 3 leaders that have been controlling North Korea, like if there is a fire in your house or your hut or whatever, like you need to risk your life to grab those pictures. But her father was taken because of some of the things that he said or were said to have said. So yeah, if you want more, if this kind of stuff intrigues you, Yaomi Park, she's got some interviews with like Joe Rogan, Jordan Peterson, a couple others that I watched. It was like horrible. What happens when government has too much control? So luckily, I don't know, maybe you could make an argument for some others, but North Korea, I think, is the most just controlling government there is. And it might be pretty close to what George Orwell was talking about in 1984. So now, after all that information, we're going to go over, hopefully this helps, because we'll watch something on John Green in 1984. And it is, he goes really quickly, a little bit slower than other crash courses, but at least by the end of hopefully this class, you'll have a pretty good understanding of what Big Brother means, 1984. When you get to high school, depending on your class, I don't think you'll read 1984, but you might come into contact with George Orwell because he wrote another book that's popular to read in high school, which is called Animal Farm. All right. If you have any questions, let me know. If not, we'll move on to John Green, a little working class, a little Frank and Beans, and a little